Good morning, trolley people. This is a fresh out of bed message. Everything is the way it is because everything is the way it is because everything else is the way it is. There is no cause to any of this. Creation is causeless. Freedom, love, peace, truth, intelligence, wisdom, all that is causeless. So why is anything here at all? Well, truly, there's nothing here. But why does there appear to be all of this here? Because there has to. Who's asking the question? There has to appear to be something here. Who's asking? Who's looking? Who sees anything? Who's that one? If you're waiting for me to answer, then you're not really looking. But if you are here and you're paying attention and you're looking at anything at all, if you're really looking, at some point the question should arise, who is the one looking? Who or what is it that sees anything at all? Isn't it the brain? But if the brain is just perceiving things and there's no hookup, hang up, or kink in the brain, those words are all related in many ways, then what would say that it's seeing anything, right? So the brain looks, apparently, and appears to see different things, but in that looking, there's the speaking of the word I, and you say, well, I am seeing, I am looking. Well, what is that I that says I see, and I look, and I know, and I feel, and I remember, or I forgot? What is that I? Because without awareness of that I, there's no possible way of asking that or answering that question, or even asking that question, without just some kind of vain need for entertainment. So what the hell is all of this? What is this thing called reality, actually? Well, unless you answer the question, what am I, or what is I, you have no way of knowing. So if you're willing to answer that question, then we can proceed. So let's begin. I'm hesitating because I just got the thought, cut the video and do a new one, but I don't think I'm going to do that, so we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll shoot myself in the ass. We'll see. So if you see what you are, the one that asks the question, the one that asks about anything at all, if you go to the root of the questioner, you see that the questioner is just a composition, a composite of memory, which is all conditioning from the outside, which is put into the system out of fear. And so it's that fear, which is division, which is trauma, suffering, no love, that asks the question. It's afraid, really, of the answer, because the answer means the ending of the question. And the ending of the question means total stillness and silence, which isn't some dark box. It's immediate, it's right here, and it contains everything. When the image of the self, the I, disappears, then all that's left is what always was and what actually is without distortion. And in that seeing, you see that all of this magnificent weaving of all the patterns of time, space, and thought is just smoke that is intelligent and alive and animate, and it's one consciousness, it's one life, and it's here by utter and absolute necessity because it's all that is. It is the formlessness dancing and playing as form, and it is the way it is because it's pure intelligence. So life is intelligence. Life is pure intelligence. Sorry, I'm like on the verge of cutting my fucking facial hair off. I think I like the way that I look better without it. when I wake up like this, it reminds me so much of a fucking walrus. Or the Lorax or some shit. I think it's time. Anyway, everything is the way it is because it must be, including this, for whatever the hell the reason is. So when you look at anything, if there's a question, if there's a concern, if there's a problem, who has the problem? From where does the problem arise? And I'm not necessarily talking about someone doing something to you that you don't. I mean, that's something else. It's not on one level, but on another level, you could say it's something else. But as presuming that you're just sitting comfortably in your room or in the car or, somewhere where you're not being harassed, then you look about and you wonder, what is all this? How did it get here? Which is the same question as who am I? What am I? What's going on? Well, the mind cannot answer that. In order for there to be an awareness of that, the mind has to come to an end. So all questioning has to come to an end. The moment that happens, the answer, which is really all that is itself, comes rushing in, and you see all this for what it is. It's a weaving of light. I said it's a weaving of smoke, which is almost what it looks like, but that smoke is light. We can be very metaphysically clever here when speaking about these things, but the living reality of what it is, it can't be described. I mean, it's almost like an acid trip, but not in the sense of jumbled thoughts. I'm talking about in the sense of absolute clarity. In the ending of the mind, there is the immediate direct awareness of what is the way that it is. And you really can't speak about it any more clearly than that. Now, logically, metaphysically, I can say that formlessness, being eternal and unmoving and unchanging, is itself omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. It is which is intelligence, actual intelligence. It's when you think of like scary alien intelligence, this is the epitome of scary alien intelligence, if you want to go into that metaphor. But the reality is when it's scary to whom? To the ego. When you actually come into direct contact with this intelligence that is the fabric of all reality, you discover that it is pure love. And it's an unconditioned love. It's pure freedom. It's pure peace. It's pure wisdom. It's intelligence. Intelligence is love. Love is intelligence. And when you see it directly, one, the only way to see it is for the false image of the self to be destroyed. Two, when you see it, you see that it alone brings an end to all images, and it is that which allows image to exist in the first place, but that image is just a kind of play, and that every human being has to, in a way, go through that mistaken identity with image, and then that mistaken identity must come to an end, and then you return to this raw being. And in this raw being, you see that you're already it. You're already here. You've already made it. You've already arrived. There's actually nothing to do. And that we can make this whole world into anything we want, because we are the very essence and substance of that, of the creator, of the source of creation. But it only happens when you are conscious and aware of that. Otherwise, it's the ego always trying to play God, trying to control, trying to dominate, which is just ignorant and stupid, and it doesn't get anywhere. And so what we're experiencing in a way basically is like the virus of the mind being sort of worked out as part of the natural biological evolutionary process. So in order for us to actually be here as living, conscious manifestations of the creator, of the source of creation, which is all that is, um, there has to be a direct awareness of what is. And in that direct awareness, you see that uh, nothing is actually personal, that the personal is an illusion. And intelligence is not personal, it's not a personal quality. Intelligence is simply life. And when you are conscious, you're you are everything and everybody, and everyone that is conscious is you. And so the minute you come into consciousness, you see and you know what Jesus knew, what Buddha knew, what Socrates knew, maybe, you know, what all the saints and the seers and the prophets and the masters, um, and you see the meaning of all prophecy. You know, you see the meaning of all scripture. You see the meaning of everything all at once. And you see the meaning of meaning beyond meaning. And you know that everything is perfect. It always was, and it always will be. And the only problem is that people are not in direct awareness of this. And the minute you're in direct awareness of this, everyone who is in direct awareness of this is of one consciousness. And everybody who's not in direct awareness of this is also in one consciousness, just of a different kind, apparently, superficially. And that's the consciousness of ego, which is mistaken identity, which is ignorance, which is violence, which is... So, as a great, prophet once said, um, you're either free or you're a killer. You know, you're either awake or you're unconscious. If you're awake, then you are of love, in love, by love, for love. If you're asleep, then you are caught in violence, by violence, for violence, of violence, with the only end of being destroyed in in your own violence, in the violence that you participate in. You know, that old saying, live by the sword, die by the sword, sort of thing. So, everything is as it is because everything is as it is, because it is what it is. It is the way it is because it's the way that it must be. There's no explanation for it because it's causeless. And so we're at that point now where you can either continue asking for an explanation of reality, or you can meet it directly for yourself. And it's like if you have some great mysterious grandpa, and you've heard stories about grandpa your whole life. You know, your parents tell stories, and your siblings tell stories, and the aunts and uncles and the cousins tell stories, and the neighbors tell stories, and people in the society and around you in the community, they tell stories, but you've never actually met him, because he's some mysterious wizard hermit that lives, kind of up in his own little space somewhere, but your whole life you've just heard these incredible stories. And then, one day you get the opportunity to go meet him, and how would you feel? You wouldn't just feel excited, maybe if you're 5 or 6, yes, but once you're, 13, 14, 15, 16, then you're scared also, maybe even at 12, right? And so there may be some excitement, but you're also terrified because you don't know what the fuck is going to happen, or what it's going to be, or who he is, or what if he doesn't like you, or what if you don't like him. You know what I mean? It's almost like going on a date that you met online. It's like, well, fuck, it's nice when you're talking, but then when you actually meet each other in the flesh, it's like, okay, are we actually going to like each other? What happens if we don't? Are we just going to be polite about it, or are we going to cut it off from the beginning? Like, do you know what I mean? What if he's mean? What if my images of him are all just wrong? And what if I get to his house and, he opens the door and it's just fucking war? What if he's a dick? What if he's an asshole? What if it's all been lies? It's that sort of thing. And so, because God is all there is, your relationship with and understanding of everything mirrors your relationship and understanding of yourself, which is your relationship and your understanding of God, of the source of creation. And so you have to go through the experience, the great event of getting caught up in the storyline and some storyline. And the only way to dispel the ignorance of all those storylines is to actually go up to the door and knock on it and wait for Grandpa to answer so that you see who the hell he is. And so you can spend your whole life subsisting on stories, whether scientific stories or artistic stories or religious stories or philosophical or psychological stories. But ultimately, finally, and immediately, you have to go knock on the door. And you have to, really knock on the door, because Grandpa may be up in his, little, up in his basement. Maybe up in his basement. He's that magical. Up in his attic, or, he may be out back, doing some crazy shit. You know what I mean? It's Grandpa. If you're going to go to Grandpa's house and you just, tuk, 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 it might work. He might be there. He might have a very sensitive door and very sensitive ears, or he may have a butler that stands by the door waiting. But when you go somewhere that you really want to go, you really want to go. You're determined to get in no matter what. And so maybe you start off gently tapping, but then you have to, you really have to really show Grandpa that you want to come in, right? We're not talking about, being forced, but if he's upstairs, you really got to knock so he can hear you. So, and then you have to be determined to sit there, and wait until he comes. You don't walk, 10,000 miles to visit someone and then go, oh, well, it looks like they're not at home. Let's turn back. No, you just walk 10,000 miles to come see somebody. And if they end up themselves turning you away, that's one thing. Do you know what I mean? But if you come 10,000 miles to see somebody, you don't just knock once and leave. You don't just, say, oh, well, the lights are off. They must be at the market. Okay, well, we'll come back in a few more years. No, you wait. You knock and you wait. Because that's what you came for. And so you have to really actually want what it is you came for. Which means it has to be real for you. It has to be sincere. And if you really want what it is you've come for, then it really can't be denied to you. That's the secret of this place. I think it was Jesus who said, knock and the door shall be open to you, seek and you shall find. And, if you really, really want something, if you 100% actually want something, and you can't generate a false desire, by the way, you can try to, but it'll always be in conflict with your true desire. And so if you surrender to your actual true deep desire, your true desire, if you surrender to it completely to the point where it's all that you want, you'll get it. If something is truly, truly, truly deeply what you want, you get it. Because in this universe, you always get what you want, deeply, actually. And so you have to see what it is you actually want. That's what true manifestation is. It's not sitting around fucking with your mind, which is what's sold as the product. It's surrendering actually to the truth of who and what you really are. Because what you deeply want is yourself. You want the truth of who you are. That's what you want. And so when you surrender deeply to your desire to know truth, to know God, to know reality as it is, to know yourself, you get it. And that's the knocking on the door. And so that's the true seeking. If you're just looking for something that's a cover over what it is you really want, you may get it, you may not. But even if you get it, it's not going to satisfy that itch. So the only thing that satisfies that deep Siberian itch inside of you, finally, is God. And not as a concept, not as I read about God in a book. Fuck that shit. I'm talking about going to Grandpa's house and knocking on the door, and Grandpa opens the door, and you give Grandpa a big hug. Or maybe you break into Grandpa's house. smash a window and jump in. You know what but I mean, but I'm really talking about you have to go the distance. I can go the distance. You have to go the distance. And if you are really, really willing to go the distance, then you will go the distance and you'll make it. And you will give yourself completely to the truth, to your own self, and yourself will give itself completely to you. And so it's a very interactive universe because it's living intelligence and it knows that it is you. You might forget that because of the bug of thought, and we're operating from this place in the beginning because it's thought that asks the question, who am I, or what is God, or what is reality, or why is everything the way it is? That's thought. And so you begin from there. And if you really earnestly, in all honesty, move step by step in that observation, in that inquiry, in that looking, then what happens is you inevitably come upon the end of the question. You come upon the end of the intellect. You come upon the end or the edge of the mind, the end of the world. You do come upon the end of the world, the end of the known. And the moment you come upon the end of the known and you discover the edge of the mind, you have two choices. You either turn back and pretend you didn't see it, and if you do that, it'll eat you the fuck alive until you die, or until you go back. Or you go, oh, well, fuck. I just discovered that nothing's real and everything's made of cardboard. Imagine telling this to the people back home. They wouldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. If they believed it, their whole society would collapse. And so what we call society is all based on the false notion that what is unreal is real. So the minute you come upon the edge of the mind, which our superstitious culture tells us is vast and infinite, even the people who worship the intellect, academics and scientists and artists and even religious people who pretend to be of faith and all of that, they're not. They have no faith at all. If they had faith, they wouldn't be religious. If they had faith, they wouldn't be in fear. If they had faith, they would fear neither God, nor the devil, nor heaven, nor hell, nor earth, nor pain, nor death, nor suffering. But they do fear. They fear everything. Religious people are the most afraid people on this planet, whatever they claim. People who walk around arming themselves to the teeth are the most afraid people in this whole world. So when you actually have faith, there's no fear. And when there's no fear, then you meet God. And so true faith is a prerequisite, but true faith means confidence. It means trust. And it means first and foremost, trust in yourself, trust in your own deep desire. Because you know that you have this deep yearning in you to know the truth for the sake of bringing an end to suffering, because you see what a vile thing it is to suffer. You have to see you can say evil, wicked, cruel. You have to see what a cruel thing it is to suffer, and what a cruel thing it is to perpetuate and propagate suffering. In any way, you have to see that. And it's that right there that is the deep itch, that no matter how many drugs or how much sex or how much pleasure, and it can be incredibly mathematically, geometrically, tantrically perfected cultivation of activities of drug recreation or sexual recreation or artistic or scientific or musical or any kind of recreation, whether it's very simple recreation or very complex, very sophisticated means and modes of indulging in recreative activity. None of it, however complex, however profound, however delightful, can never, ever, ever deeply scratch that itch. It's just not possible. It's not possible. Nothing of time and space and thought, which is all that is materialized, all that can be collected and known, none of that can ever scratch that itch. So finally you have to go to Grandpa's house. And when you do, you don't ever want to leave. It's the best place ever. Because the living answers to all questions are there. I said the living answers because the very substance of all time and space is the answer. It is its own answer. Everything that is carries its own information. And if you stop projecting onto things and you just look at what is the way it is, all the information about everything is contained in everything. And then there are no more questions. There's just the raw openness of being. And you see that the intelligence of being is beauty itself. And so naturally, all that comes from it is beauty. And the brain, being a time-space thought weaving of this intelligence, naturally must perceive everything else as a time-space thought weaving. However, because it's infinite eternal consciousness that is all of that, not only is it the brain and the body and everything the brain body perceives, but it's also the intelligence, the formlessness coursing through it. The brain, the human being, is capable of being aware of all time, space, and thought, as well as all timelessness all at once. So the human being is God. The human being is Grandpa. The human being is aware of time and timelessness, actually, simultaneously. So you can be aware of the eternal formlessness of your own being, as well as being aware simultaneously of all of form and time and space and thought. And in this direct awareness, there's no question about who is God and what am I and what's going on, because there's no need for the question, because you are the living truth. You are the living reality. Everything is the living truth and the living reality. And so then there's no why. You see that all who, what, when, where, why, and how is just a contrivance of the mind. You know, the last one is what, because all this is the one what, but then you see it's not a what. It's just an is. It's an I. It's an is. I is. I is means the same thing. I means is means God. So if you say I is God, it's the truth, but saying I is God is just saying I, or is, or God, or God is God, or I is I, or, you know, I is God, is I. I mean, it means the same thing. And so you're really only ever saying God, God. So we're speaking all these words, and they're all differentiated words, and they form coherent sentences, but really, all we're saying is God, or I, or is. That's all we're saying. All of these words just mean I, or is, or God. And so when you're clear on that, when you actually see that directly, then when the words get put together in these rather complex ways, they make sense. And if you're listening, you can feel that something is being spoken that is larger than anything that thought or the mind or the brain can put together and contrive. And so the language, which is the contrivance of the brain, is being used to speak by that which is infinite and eternal. And so that's being done for the sake of the play, for the sake of love, for the sake of consciousness, for all who are willing and able to hear and listen. And it's not personal, and so it's not about, because there's no confusion about that. There's a body, is just this body. And there's no confusion about this body being separate from anything. And so I can say, I am this and I am that and blah, 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 but it's, you know, who is that, right? And so there's no confusion about this body being separate from anything. And so even if this body, you know, is referred to by certain titles, you know, when working with the kids at the dojo, for example, and now we're coming back into, you know, sort of a time-space awareness, right? But timelessness is obviously still here. It's the base of it. So when working with the kids on the mat, the kids have a certain, you know, title, a certain word that they use to refer to this body. Or when at the temple space in that kind of scene, people have certain words that they use to refer to this one, certain titles and what have you. Or, you know, when dancing, you know, people have certain things that they say and certain comments they make about the body and so on. But there is direct awareness here, or just very simply, this body has certain names, right? There's the name on the birth certificate that's associated with this body, and then there are all the names that people in different community settings use to refer to this body, and that's all fine. Those are ways of you say, hey, can I have that bottle of tonic, because otherwise someone may give you a bottle of something else, right? And so thought, the mind, goes with all the objects of time space just quite naturally. The relative words may change over time, that is what it is. But mind is time space, thought is time space, and it's there as part of the movement of time space, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. But then if one stops and identifies with it, if one is here identified with the body, identified with the mind, with the image of the mind associated with the body, then one will start identifying with all the names and the titles that one is given in different spaces, and then you become very stuffy and you go, I am the sensei, and I am the teacher, and I am the swami, and I am the shaman, and I am the satguru, and I am the blah blah blah. And it's like, bruh, I am the baba, and I am the da, and so you better listen to me, because I'll tell you, and blah. And that's so fucking stuffy. There is a point sometimes where you do have to go, hey, listen, but when you do that, it's out of love. This all comes out of love. It's not about making anything of yourself as an individual, because when you're here in this awareness, as a living reality, that there is only God, that there is only this living intelligence, which is play. It's pure play. So God is pure intelligence, which is pure love, which is pure play, which is pure, all-embracing, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent being, without judgment, without hatred, without fear. And so you're simply here in all of this, and you're able to enjoy it, but there's no you enjoying it. It's enjoying itself. And so even if I say, there's nothing to do but to be here and enjoy it, there's still division in that, because we're speaking. And so whenever we speak, even if we're speaking the truest and most sublime awareness of being, it's still being spoken as thought, and so there's still inherently duality or division in the mode of speaking. Even if there's the total awareness that this is all God, speech inherently must operate under the mechanical functionality of the subject and the object. But subject and object don't exist, they're one. The observer is the observed. So when you're aware of this as it is, there's nothing to do but let it do what it does. And there isn't even anybody to let anything do anything or to not do anything, because there's no separate agent. There's only the one singular raw intelligence of being. And when you see this, you see everything's forgiven. Everything is forgiven because it is everything. And so then you go, oh, we're all free, and nobody has to suffer. Nobody has to hurt. Nobody has to hurt anybody. Punishment and reward are ridiculous. Vengeance is stupid. Everything that everyone is trying to do to get ahead and get better and get wiser and get more enlightened and be more loving or peaceful or meditative, or it's all stupid, because the base nature of your being itself is pure intelligence, pure meditativeness, pure ecstasy, pure love, pure bliss, pure joy, pure peace, pure compassion. That is the very essence of your being. God is the very fabric of your being, because God is all there is. God is the only substance. There's nothing but God. God is all there is. God is all there is. God is the only reality. And so when you're hearing this, there's nothing to do but to be it. And in being it, it's just naturally shared. It pours out of you. As my teacher said, it oozes out of your cracks. It pours out of you. It just, you can't help it. You choicelessly are aware of yourself, and you choicelessly share yourself, like the sun. The sun doesn't choose to shine or not. The sun's beingness is shiningness. The sun shines by virtue of its being, not by any choice it makes. It just shines. And so like the sun, I shine because I is the sun. The sun is I. You see what I mean? And so I just shine because I is beingness. It's not a personal I separate from you. That's why I can speak like this, because when I'm speaking and I use the word I'm not talking about some I separate from you. Now I can, and I can say I have to go eat, or I have to go shower, or I have to go, help do this or that or whatever, whatever, that's fine. I have to go shit, I have to go shave, whatever it is, I can say I have to do this, but that's the usage of I talking about the body, and it's not a statement of the I of consciousness immediately, although it is, because the body is still that same I. And so when I say I could be referring to pure consciousness, or I can be referring to the activities of this body. And you have to have the discernment to hear the difference. And even when talking about the activities of the body, there still isn't a difference fundamentally between the body and that pure consciousness. But because there's an awareness of that, the body stays in equilibrium and equanimity in terms of its activity. And if it starts to go out, no, it doesn't, because nothing can. And if anything does go out, it just comes to an end. And so that's why all appearance of form comes to an end, because nothing can continue looking the same way forever. How could it? It just doesn't work that way. But what everything is made of is that living intelligence, and that is God, and that's what you are, that's what we are. So it's like if I say darkness, and this word comes up a lot, if I say darkness, it could mean ignorance, inertia, contraction, ego, ignorance, right? Or it could mean the darkness of night, the darkness of space, or it could mean aesthetic darkness, like goth, punk, metal, emo, that sort of thing, right? Or it can mean the unknown, that which isn't known. Or it could mean some kind of mythological darkness, the images of darkness put up by religion and society and the bureaucracies and things like that, in order to paint some fantastic image of some imagined great enemy that must be slain or conquered or killed or whatever. And so the word darkness means all these different things. You could even use it to refer to time and space, which you don't know and you don't understand. And so it means the unknown in that sense. So if I say darkness, what do I mean by that word? Well, in order for you to know what I mean by that word, you have to be listening. And if you're not listening, or you can't listen, you'll just project onto what I'm saying, and you'll have no idea what I'm saying. Or you can ask. If you ask, I'll tell you. But then we have to be having a live conversation. And so you can comment on the video and say, okay, at this moment, in this second, you said darkness, which version of it did you mean? And then I can tell you. But obviously that's why these conversations are better had in person, because then we're with each other live. You're not just watching a recording. And while watching these videos, if you're really listening and watching, you absolutely can use these videos as a gateway into God realization. Absolutely, you can use these videos as a means of coming into direct awareness of living reality. But then you have to go beyond the videos, right? It's easier often to come into it directly and live. And so that means having a live conversation, right? Which this can substitute for if you're paying attention. But if it's really kind of dense, then, or if you're just very, eager, then it's better to have a live, one-on-one direct conversation. Because then we're live with each other, and so there can be live questioning and answering in the moment. Because when you if you sit with me and we're talking and we're looking at this together, and you make some statement, you posit some axiom or some conclusion, I don't just say, no, that's wrong. That doesn't help. That's force. That's ridiculous. No, I ask you a question. Because if you say anything at all, I can see the whole structure of your mind, and I can see where that question is coming from, or I can see where that statement is coming from. And because I can see the root of that statement physically, I can ask the proper question that will demand the unraveling of that conclusion, so that you must perceive what is the way it is. And so I know how to ask a question. I know what a real question is. I know how to use a question to get back to the root of everything. And so that's the value of sitting with me, actually, is that I can unravel your mind. But actually, and I'm not talking about, ping-ponging you inside of yourself. I mean, I can actually unravel the mind and bring you into the stillness with me, if you are willing to allow me. And these videos are the next best thing. That's the purpose of these, is to, pull the rug out, as my teacher said, pull the rug out from under your mind and watch you fall on God. So, I know how to unravel the mind. I do it all the time. It's the most beautiful thing. Because there is no mind here. Mind is my toy. It's a play toy. It's a tool for enjoying, being, for enjoying reality. So the whole purpose of this is to get back to enjoying reality. It's not about getting some new beliefs. This has nothing to do with belief or disbelief or anything. It has nothing to do with drawing new conclusions or joining a new club or having a new identity. This is really about discovering what is here fundamentally beyond and behind, but beyond all identity, all thought, all conclusion, all notion, all image, so that you can come into that which is absolute. Because what you're looking for is absolute reality, not some relative nonsense. Because, of course, time and space is relative. It has to be relative. Why wouldn't it be relative? If it were absolute, you would be dead, and so would everything. And so if any form, if any time, space, and thought were absolute, then everything would die, obviously. So only the eternal formless itself is absolute, and all time and space is relative. So if you want to make one the other, you're fucked. I mean, that's called the mind and confusion. But what you are, even when the mind is in confusion, is still eternal God. So when you become aware of that directly, it's, and then you see what God is. And God is not this game of power that people try to use to destroy each other. People turn God into this thing of justifying their ignorance. And that's not what God is. God is the source of your ability to even think, breathe, shit, stand, fuck, or justify or not justify. God is the root of all movement, of all being, of all power. And all that power and being and movement belong to God. And so you only think that you're some separate actor in the midst of all this, and you're not. And the minute you give up that illusion, then you're here with yourself as you are, and then it's like, oh my God. And, yeah, you have to be a little careful with that, because it's very easy to sort of maintain a little stream of thought and then go off into a certain direction and start going crazy, and start, and that happens sometimes, at first. When you first have these realizations, you start going mad. I mean, you'll pick things up and bam, and smash them together, and, you'll start breaking stuff, bashing your head into the wall. You'll start going in a way that will make people look at you and go, oh, he's lost it, he's fucking psychotic, but when you finally see, and there's nothing wrong with that kind of celebration, it is a kind of celebration, but when you have your fill of that, you see that it doesn't, at some point that celebration is arrested, whether by the police or by the institution, the psych hospital, or by the people around you, or just by the fact that it lands you up in some dirty alley somewhere where no one listens to you and everyone thinks you're just some crazy psycho. Now, if that doesn't matter to you, because you're drunk on God and you're perfectly happy being drunk on God, breaking everything, then it doesn't matter to you. But the moment that that is realized to again be contrived, because it becomes a belief, because even if you have that experience where you go crazy and start breaking things, that experience had a beginning, and therefore it'll have an end, because the body can't go on forever doing the same activity. It has to sleep, it has to stop, and the minute that happens, there's a reset. And so then what you end up discovering more deeply is that everything that needs to be broken is already broken, and everything that needs to be put together is already put together. And so there's in fact nothing to do at all whatsoever, and then you simply come and rest in this stillness. And then you see in that, oh, I may just sit here in stillness forever, beyond the death of the body even, and that's fine. Or anything may happen, anything might happen, but you have no way of knowing. And so then you just come into the stillness. And then suddenly here you are, watching this video, recording this video, speaking, listening. And so this is all an outpouring of God. It's an outpouring of consciousness. So why is anything the way it is? Because God is God. Why is anything the way it is? Because. There's no reason. There's no cause. There's no reason. And so we can sit here, again, metaphysically, and we can describe very scientifically the movement of time, space, and thought, and the movement of the mind, but all of that is a way of moving around it unless your intellect is so caught up and so engaged in that field that you have to be with someone who has an even sharper intellect than you in order to guide you to the end of the intellect, because the end of the intellect is the end of the intellect. And our whole vanity in our culture is this, putting our hands over our eyes and going, there's no end to the intellect, the mind is infinite and vast, and we will never reach the end of thought. Then you're an idiot. Because thought, the mind, the intellect is a thing of physics and time and space and thought, and it is absolutely limited, absolutely finite, and you as consciousness can know the whole beginning, middle, and end of thought, the mind, the intellect right here, right now. Period. And that scares you, it frightens you, because it means that all of your scientific and artistic and religious and philosophical and psychological tools are really limited, and they can't save you and they can't help you, which is the truth. Religion cannot save you, science cannot save you, art cannot save you. Philosophy and psychology cannot save you. It's all secondhand trash. It's all decoration. Time and space is all decoration. Thought is decoration. The mind is decoration. The intellect is pure decoration. And everyone gets fascinated, so all the scriptures are just decoration. All philosophy is decoration. And people get so fascinated, so enamored with the decoration, that they make degrees. I'm a PhD in philosophy. And you have a doctorate in decoration. That's cute. It's really cute. Or a doctorate of divinity or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. If that's your thing, if that's what you like, it's great. Go through school, go through a program, go through culture, get enlightened, get degrees, get called doctor or swami or baba or sense. Get called these things, whatever, it's fine. But so what? If you walk around in life going, oh, I'm a sensei. It's like, what the fuck, dude? You're going to get your ass knocked off. If you walk around going, oh, I am the great guru, and I am the swami, and I am enlightened, and it's like, well, now you're fucking missing it, bruh, because the whole purpose of being here is just being here. And if I'm here, and I can see all this shit, and I can articulate, I can describe it, like I see God. And if I see God, and I try to tell you about God, I'm just telling God about God, because God apparently forgot who God is. And then some people hear and they go, whoa, that's great. And some people hear and they go, I think you're crazy. And other people hear and they go, that's blasphemy. And other people hear and they don't hear anything. And some people then hear and they go, oh, I can take that and use that to control and power and hurt people and whatever, manipulate and cheat and steal. And so everybody hears this. And in the hearing of this that's being spoken right now, what you actually are hearing and what you're actually seeing is only a reflection of who and what you are, actually. You're only ever getting a reflection of yourself. And so If you look into most mirrors, they're totally distorted. But when you look into a clean mirror of a waterfall or a mountain or the sky, then all you see is yourself. When you look at life the way it is, whatever you see is yourself. So what are you going to do with it? Well, that depends on your intelligence. That depends on what you're actually willing to do. And so it all comes back to you. Everything comes back to you. And that means utter and total responsibility. And in the true sense of that, which nobody likes, partially because our notion of responsibility is distorted by the ego and society, which is the ego, which equates responsibility with suffering and discipline and hurt and pain and killing and domination and conquest, which is stupid, has nothing to do with it. And so you see that the world, society, civilization does not support you in knowing the truth. It can't. Only the wizard in the tower, only Grandpa God, only that mysterious, old fuck in the tower, who everyone knows is magical and who everyone's a little frightened of. Really, that's the only one that can help you. And even that one will say, look, I can't help you. But I can, if you're willing, I can show you. And if you're willing, I can point it out to you. But you have to be willing to walk. I can't move your legs for you. You have to be willing to move. You have to be willing to do it. I can't do it for you. You have to be willing to do it. So I love these questions, and they're beautiful questions, and they're really phenomenal questions because they evoke all of this, which is marvelous. It's phenomenal. And then, are you willing for the question itself to come to an end so that you can be with the immediate reality of all of this? Do you see all the woo? Oh, there's great magic afoot. There's there's stardust sparkling everywhere. Because here you are in the wizard's tower. So, this whole cosmos is alchemy. This whole cosmos is a great magician's trick, as my teacher said. This whole cosmos is it's the appearance of nothing into nothing. So there really is nothing to be afraid of at all, ever. And so when you enter into the house of God, when you enter into the house of truth, when you enter into the house of that great wizard, I promise you that you'll find him dancing. You'll find her dancing. You'll find them dancing. Because God is a dancer. And God is always dancing. Dancing. God is never not dancing. And so, any great one that you meet, well, they must dance. They must be a dancer. They must be a dancer. Any god that doesn't sing and dance, especially, any god that doesn't dance is crazy. Any god that doesn't dance isn't God, isn't much of a god, because God must dance. God does dance. God is dance. Not just God is a dancer, but God is dance. And so you're being given the invitation to come dance. Come dance with me. Come dance. And so that's the invitation of all of life to you, is come dance. Will you come dance? That's the invitation. Come dance.